who is also a presidential candidate. Thank you so much, Juma, and of course we'll keep in touch just to get all the updates in regards to Patrick Oboi Amuriat and the different things he is promising Ugandans. Well, he is going to be on a ballot paper come 2021. You're still watching Morning at NTV, and we now want to continue looking at elections per se, but also look at the education aspect of it. Well, as campaigns kicked off, President Museveni, we saw that he once again repeated his pet peeve about costs discouraging learners and increasing dropout rates. Well, the attitude that primary education is totally free has crippled efforts to mobilize resources to support schools with high levels of income, poverty. Most households cannot afford meals for their children, for their pupils, for their students. And this morning we want to speak about this and so much more. We have Miss Christine Vidinjiro, Program Manager at Uganda Date Network this morning. Welcome to Morning at NTV, Miss Christine.
Thank you very much, Sandra, and good morning, viewers.
Well, we just want to start by asking you and trying to be snoopy into the report that you did. What are some of the discoveries that you made?
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, Uganda Date Network, by way of very brief introduction, is a national policy advocacy organization formed to campaign for debt relief, which was achieved under the Highly Indebted Poor Countries Initiative, and later the MDRI in 2000. And so the debt resources were now channeled to address the poverty situation in the country, and that is focusing on health, education and agriculture, among others. And so our mandate is basically implemented in two program areas, and that is community empowerment and engagement, which mainly interfaces with communities, and then the policy analysis and governance program, which works at national level and provides a linkage between the national level and local level issues. So we work with government, different ministries, departments and agencies, and media, of course, but also with other civil society organizations. So we do acknowledge that education is a right for all citizens under the Constitution, Article 32, Clause 4. And because government also was part and in fulfillment of the international community commitment to have education for all by 2000, but also under the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, we saw government introduce the UPE program, and that was in 1997. So UDN set out to conduct a study and actually find out, is there a correlation between the school facilities grant and retention of pupils in school. And by the way, when UPE was introduced, there were two basic grants that were supporting the program, and that is the school facilities grant, which was a grant by the World Bank and was focusing on building classrooms, building teachers' houses and head teachers, but also furniture. And unfortunately, that grant has since ended. So we have the school capitation grant currently that is given by government. And this started at 5,000 shillings in 1997 for the lower primary, and then 8,000 for the upper primary, and that is from P4 onwards up to P7. And it later increased to 10,000 for all from P1 up to P7, and up to the current 13,000 shillings that it is at. So our study revealed that the first batch or the first cohort of the UPE students or pupils from 1997 in Amuru, the study we conducted was in Teso and Karamoja regions, and that was in the districts of Amuru, Nabilatuk, Gulu, and Moroto. So we discovered that out of the enrollment, we had 22% make it to P7. That was the first batch of UPE.
On the UPE program?
Yes, 22% made it to P7, but 56% still of that are what sat for PLE. Then for the second batch, the percentage increased slightly to 62%. And currently the final batch, not final really, but the current batch which ended in 2019, data that is available up to 2017 showed that 60% have so far made it, but we're yet to get the final data as well. So
made it to P7 and sitting also for
yes, sitting for PLE.
PLE.
Yes, so there's some progress. Yes,
level. Okay.
There's some progress, especially with retention compared to previously. And we know with the introduction of VPE, we saw a surge in enrollment from 3 million in 1997 to the current, up to 2019, we had 8 million pupils enrolling for UPE. So we saw that there's increase in enrollment and retention as well, like we've seen. But whether we can attribute it wholly to the capitation grant or other factors is now something else to consider. Yes.
Well, speaking of UPE, recently I'm sure you saw the president also pledging to promising free vocational education. Do you think we have learnt enough from the UPE mistakes? You say that we've made some progress, but do you think it's enough for us to say now we can provide free vocational education?
Well, first of all, we have made, like I mentioned, we have made some progress, but it is not wholly by the capitation grant, because we have the World Food Programme, for instance, that provides meals at school, the school feeding program. And again, I'm speaking for the areas where we conducted the study in Acholi and Karamoja regions. So we see it is the World Food Programme and some partners that provide food and meals at lunch. And because of that, we have seen a surge in enrollment, because parents often send siblings and other children to school to have meals, because of the poverty situation there and famine. Households hardly afford food. They actually have 1 meal a day. So this school feeding has attracted the pupils, but also helped retain them in school. One, because the SFG, or the capitation grant, is not flexible enough. The parameters are set at the national level, so they cannot, the schools cannot find it flexible to adjust and address some of the local realities, like famine, which is the main challenge in these areas. So we also see that some of these other stakeholders, the development partners, the CSOs and NGOs, have also come in to provide some of the school equipment, sports equipment for co-curricular activities, to supplement on the little capitation grant that is there. So it is not wholly by government, and we acknowledge the contribution of the private sector and the partners. But again, we see parents have abandoned school or have discouraged their children from going to school. Now we see an increase in dropout rates. One, because of the expenses involved. Primary level is free, but when you go to USE, the secondary level, there are some fees and dues to pay. So because of that, we see parents discouraging their children from going to school and rather focusing on hands-on skills, going farming, starting some businesses. One, because
getting into the family business as well.
Not really, not the family business, but they want to do something small that will bring in some little money to cater to the family, to bring in some food, because like we said, hunger and famine is a big challenge. Yes. So well, we do not, I don't see that happening really.
The free vocational education?
Yes, I do not see us affording that. Yes, because as it is, the school facilitation grant, like we saw, is now at 13,000 shillings. And one of our recommendations is that it should be increased to at least 20,000 shillings. And that is the list for each child or for each pupil, because the National Planning Authority recently carried out a study on UPE, and according to global standards, minimum standards, and of course adjusting for inflation, they found that the capitation grant should now be at 63,000 shillings per child, per pupil, and that is for urban schools, primary schools, and then 59,000 shillings for the rural pupils in the rural schools.
Let's also maybe, you know, every single time when someone talks about UPE, most people would quickly rush to say the quality of the education offered is lacking. What are your discoveries in regards to that, and would you say that the quality of the UPE schools is not up to the standard?
Thank you. While we saw a surge or an increment or an increase in enrollment, and now we have the quantity, but of course the quality still remains a challenge. It still remains a concern to us, and we see that pre-primary school is really important to prepare a child to be able to join the primary phase of education. So this is not it's not possible, or rather it is lacking in some of these schools, in most of these UPE schools. But besides, the parents cannot afford the cost of the pre-primary schools. So we see pupils going to P1 without the basics, the elementary knowledge and concentration. So the teachers who receive them in P1 have quite a lot to do to have these children up and running. Yeah, but we also see that enrollments have increased. You have a teacher who is now receiving 300 children or pupils in P1, but also currently we have 14 teachers in each school. Okay, that is the average, 14 teachers per school, as opposed to the minimum of 28, the required minimum. And the quality of these teachers is also not to the, to the level that we would want for them to have quality students or quality pupils out. So we see, because of the facilitation, or rather the poor pay, the quality of teachers that we attract in these schools is also not the best. So because of all that, the pupils are too many, the numbers are too many, the teachers are too few, and with the quality that is not to the desired, so we see the quality of pupils that come out is not really the best.
Okay,
yes.
So we're having a situation where we're having more students, few teachers, leading to poor output, if I may put it that way.
Yes, few teachers, and the quality we also have to emphasize, because of the pay. The pay that these teachers are given can only attract a certain quality of teachers.
All right.
Yes.
Well, maybe taking you back to your report and taking you back to Karamoja and the Acholi sub-region on the COVID-19 and UPE, just to find out, you already mentioned there was a surge or an increase in the number of people going to school and sitting for PLE. But what do you exactly find on the ground, the things affecting the people of Karamoja and the Acholi sub-region, the issues that are affecting the children and the parents there and the teachers? What do you have in your report?
Well, thank you very much. One of the biggest issues is, of course, retention, school dropouts. The rate is high. It is, the average is 183% for the areas where we went, and that is quite high. This is attributed mainly to the gender aspect, because girls are rarely retained in schools for various reasons. They have to go back and cater to the domestic chores, but also boys, they also drop out, and they go out looking for money and etc. But we also do not see parents actively involved in supporting these children or the schools to have the pupils keep in school. We see one of the challenges is that there's hardly infrastructure to keep, like I said, the girls. We do not have sanitary pads maybe at school. Then facilities for the children with special needs, maybe latrines and etc. So those are some of the biggest challenges that we found. But probably the biggest of them all is still school feeding, because it has been the sole reason for either retaining or having children drop out from school.
All right. Thank you so much, Christine. Well, we'll now want to hear maybe again from your report what are some of the recommendations that you have.
Yes, thank you very much. One of our recommendations, like I highlighted, was that government should increase this capitation grant to at least 20,000 shillings. It is still small, of course, compared to the NPA recommendation, but at least for starters, this would work. Then we also want to see government have the national school feeding policy out and running, because we are still depending on World Food Program to feed the children. But if this were to withdraw, actually one of the head teachers in these schools said if World Food Program were to withdraw from Karamoja and Teso regions, then that would be the end of UPE in the whole region, in the area. So we want government to put in place plans, you know, to see that just to complement this, but also just in the event that some of these stakeholders withdraw, then we're able to sustain and move on with this. But we also want campaigns, massive campaigns involving teachers and then especially parents of these children, to help keep these children in school, because like we saw, it's mainly because of the parents that children drop out of school to go and do other chores or attend to other things. We want to see government restructure the capitation grant so that it can be adjusted. If the schools have some urgent needs, maybe like school feeding, some of them said they would want to have the children stay in boarding, you know, like have a boarding section, so that maybe like the girl child, if she's at home, she has so many distractions, she's doing domestic chores, she cannot read and concentrate, and so this affects output at P7 level. So if they're in boarding, they are better able to concentrate and read and probably have better outputs. So those are some of our basic recommendations through the report to government and stakeholders.
I hope all the details put in this report are going to be sent out there so that the different presidential candidates can understand which areas to tackle and to address in this period, right?
Oh yes, this is going to be a public report and it can be accessed by everyone on, of course, UDN website, but also we shall distribute copies to those we can reach. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Christine Bidinjedo, a program manager at Uganda Date Network, for joining us this morning at NTV. We do keep in touch, and we look forward to seeing all these recommendations put in place by whichever government takes on, or the current government. You're still watching Morning at NTV. We'll be back.